3, 2, 1. Karolina Gerlich, you are the Executive Director of the CWC. Firstly, welcome to you to the Care Home Show, and Ben Allen, the Chair of the CWC, the Care Workers Charity, and also the CEO of Wellness. It's a pleasure to have you both on the show today.
Hi, Simon.
Thanks for having me back.
It's good to have you back, Ben. And Karolina, obviously a special welcome to you, as it's your, how many days are you into your new role? Remind me.
Well, just about 4 weeks.
Got you. How's it all going so far?
Very fast. It feels like it's been much longer than that. No, it's going great. It was a bit of a shock to be introducing myself to the new team over Zoom. But we seem to have worked that out. So it's going great. Awesome.
Well, it's great to have you as running the show at the CWC. Obviously, we've known each other for a little while, so it's nice to see you in that appointment. And great to have you at the helm. So, give us a little bit of background, Karolina. For those of you that don't know you personally, give us a bit of an intro into your background and really how you ended up in your new role.
So I've been working as a care worker for almost 12 years now in different roles: personal assistant, home care worker. I did live in care for 4 years as well. And then a few years ago, I moved into London and focused on home care. And around now 3 years ago, I joined NACAS, National Association of Care and Support Workers, and I was running that as a CEO, as a professional body and voice for care workers up until earlier this year. And then it seemed like the right and sensible thing to do for the care workers to come in and work with the Care Workers Charity and try to grow the awareness of the charity outside of the sector, and also make sure that from the information that the charity gets from grant giving and interactions with providers, we can influence policy as well.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And what's really powerful about that is the fact that obviously you come from the front line. This is your life that we're talking about. So I think from an empathy and an understanding perspective, obviously what you're able to do is to put yourself into the shoes of the care workers. Because again, that's been your professional career for such a long time, and I think that comes with an awful lot of weight, but I also think it will come from an awful lot of appreciation for the people that the charity support. So yeah, that's really exciting. So as I say, great to have you on board. Albeit we've you started your new position in we find ourselves in kind of crazy times at the moment with everything that's going on with COVID-19. So Ben, do you want to give us, just for anyone that isn't aware of the CWC, and hopefully there aren't too many people that are in that position, but yeah, for anyone that doesn't know about the Care Workers Charity, can you give us a quick introduction into what the charity is all about, why it's so important, and how it's helping care workers?
Yeah, so the Care Workers Charity has been in existence for around about a decade, and was set up by a number of care group CEOs who wanted to have a supportive charity to provide care workers with crisis support should they need it through a mechanism of grants. The Care Workers Charity supports all care workers across all industries, so from domiciliary care to live at home care to the care home market as well. So over 1.5 million care workers. The Care Workers Charity is there to support them on their rainy days. So if there's ever a time where they need support or they face financial hardship, that's why the Care Workers Charity is in existence.
Got you. Perfect. Thank you for explaining. So I think what's really important about that is the fact that obviously care workers, because of the level of salaries and things that they're on, or the amount of income that they're on, they can be one paycheck away from being in a really sticky set circumstances financially. So whether it be, I think I've heard situations where setting care workers up when they've been experienced of domestic abuse, or maybe they've had some type of maintenance issue in their house. The grants go such a long way to supporting people, obviously in their hour of need.
Yeah, so we're supporting lots of people all over the country who with a range of financial challenges, whether that is fleeing domestic violence or falling into rent arrears. So often it's down to circumstances. For instance, if somebody's having to take is off work due to sick pay or sickness or long-term sick, and just not being able to make ends meet through no fault of their own, and because they're a low-paid workforce, often on low-hour contracts, it's very easy to slip into extreme financial hardship. And that's why we exist, is to make sure that those individuals have got that that safety net that may not exist otherwise.
Absolutely. And when these fantastic people that literally do extraordinary things on a day-by-day basis, it's incredibly sad to see people suffering in that that obviously do so much for the world. So I'm obviously a massive fan of the CWC, try and do everything that I can to try and support it. So yeah, if there's anyone out there that's listening to this and that isn't aware of the charity itself, hopefully this podcast will be of interest to yourself, and it'll be great to have you get involved in some way, shape or form as well. So so I think it makes sense to talk about what's going on relevant to the Care Workers charity and COVID-19. I think it's a really important talking point. Can both of you just break down for me? So what are you seeing so far relevant to COVID-19 and the activities of the charity at the moment at kind of a macro level, if you like?
So with COVID-19, what was very quickly realized was that a large chunk of the workforce is having to either shield, self-isolate, or people are being sick with COVID-19. And depending on provider, it could be as high as 20 to 25%, which is obviously a huge impact. And like Ben mentioned, care workers are a low-paid workforce, mostly due to chronic underfunding from the government over the years. And even losing 2 weeks of wages because of self-isolation can have catastrophic costs in terms of their finances. So what we decided to do is set up very quickly a fundraiser and a new different grant giving scheme that is simpler and quicker to access for care workers in those situations. And we are receiving right now, week on week, 1,000% increase in applications that the charity was getting in the months before that. And in the last 2.5 weeks, we've approved grants for a bigger amount than the charity gave away in all of last year. So what we're seeing is a huge increase in demand, which unfortunately means that there are a lot of care workers that are really struggling financially. And that's when they're doing their best, working at the front line, putting their health and well-being at risk, but also doing the right thing and self-isolating when they know they could potentially have the virus. And issues with testing mean that they don't definitely know that, but they still need to take the precautions that have been announced. So yes, huge demand and a lot of care workers in need right now.
So you couldn't have started at a more important time then, by the sounds of things. It's I can imagine the last few weeks have been hectic for you, but in a way, in as much as that the charities obviously be doing tremendous work. So it's great that you're able to be able to distribute that kind of volume of funds. But it doesn't sound like it sounds like there will have to be plenty more fundraising to be able to support the volume of people, of course, that are suffering in a set of circumstances. So, Ben, what's your view on kind of the state of play as we see it at the moment, relevant to the campaign?
Well, I think the campaign's doing really well. So just to be clear, we set up the Coronavirus Care Workers Fund 2-3 weeks ago now. In 2 or 3 weeks, we've raised over £333,000. So significant effort from the whole sector coming together to support the Care Workers charity. So huge effort from the team at the Care Workers charity, led by Karolina, to bring that level of funding in. Of course, it's challenging where the demand for grants outstrips the ability or the current rate of fundraising. So there is a need for more funding to meet that demand. But I think we should all be very optimistic that in sort of an unprecedented circumstance, we've seen the whole sector come together to support the Care Workers charity, whether that be through direct fundraising or putting into our fundraising efforts, or the Sparkle for Social Care, which is being led by a different group. So there's a lot of initiatives going on to help support the Care Workers charity, both in fundraising, but also to raise awareness of the great work the care workers are doing. So clap for carers and for the NHS is very positive. Obviously, people in social care are very much clapping for care workers, which is wonderful. So there's a lot more attention on care workers, which is great. Unfortunately, they're up against it at the moment. So the work is hard, and a lot of people are having to self-isolate or shield, which is putting them into financial hardship, which is why the Care Workers charity exists. But I'm an optimist, and broadly I'm optimistic that the funding will keep coming, and we'll keep being able to distribute sums of money to people in need.
Yeah, no. What? Remind me again. Sorry, what was the total figure that's been raised so far in the last 2.5 weeks or whatever it was?
I think we're at 334,000.
We're at 335, just over now.
Oh, good stuff.
Great.
Just refresh the page.
Excellent. Good to get that. Good to get that live update. I mean, that's a tremendous amount of money to be raised in an incredibly short period of time. So, you should be immensely proud of the work that you've done to manage to to be able to get that level of fundraising. But this is like the way that I've been trying to think about this recently with everything that's been going on. It kind of feels like this needs to be the beginning, the beginning of the social care world experiencing the same kind of level as of a respect and appreciation to that of the NHS. The beginning of the people getting more appreciation themselves, the care workers themselves, for them to be seen as invaluable workers, not unskilled workers, which we've all heard that one and been thoroughly frustrated about. So I really hope that out of what is obviously an extremely unfortunate and frustrating set of circumstances, that we can come out on the other side of this, hopefully in the best place that we can, given everything that's going on, and to be able to take some of the good from the situation, you know.
Sorry, Ben.
No, you go, Karolina.
I've personally experienced the change that seems to have happened in the last couple of weeks. Friday mornings, I still go and do a couple of care visits, so I'm continuing in that role. And 3-4 weeks ago, when I went to do some shopping for my client at Waitrose, I wasn't allowed in outside of the queue. I had to queue for a very, very long time because I was told, that's not going to happen. You're not the NHS. You don't have the badge. When I went this Friday, that was a different story. I was let in straight away, and actually some people in the queue are also saying thank you for the work. So I think that's my personal experience, and I have heard from care workers in different places that they're experiencing more of that recognition, and hopefully that will just continue growing to the level that it deserves.
Yeah, definitely. How much obviously Matt Hancock was on TV recently, kind of singing the praises of the social care world and saying thank you and trying to put it on the map, and to hear him kind of to state the fact that he wanted to see both the NHS and the social care world seen as equal. How did that feel, getting to see that on the TV?
That felt great. It needed saying, and it is a little bit difficult that it takes a crisis like this for these things to be realized. But the great thing is that it has been, and that hopefully, from his speech, more things in terms of practical application of that appreciation as well will come soon.
Yeah, definitely. How about you, Ben? What was your view when you saw Matt Hancock on the news the other day, singing the praises of social care?
Obviously, it's wonderful, but they need to turn into action. So talk is cheap, but what you want to see is that translating into better pay, better career progression, and better support for the care workforce.
and partially when I was when I was talking about this is kind of the first step, that was partly what I was alluding to as well. It's to your point, I think it's great to hear it, but we do need to see action now. But I think through the CWC, through the Clap for Carers, through the Sparkle for Social Care, through all of the other initiatives that are going on up and down the country, collectively we continue to bang that drum and do a good job of raising the profile of social care and keeping the social care world in the from the perception of the public and the media and the government in a positive light, and in the way that it does, of course, deserve to be so.
I'm very hopeful that, well, the crisis first of all will be finished by the end of the summer at the latest, and I also hope that from everything that's been happening, you know, the Professional Care Workers Day that the charity will be running now and taking over will be something that the whole nation can celebrate. And, you know, it will be that one day when everybody comes together, not just people inside the sector like before, and really show the appreciation and recognition for care workers, and that it will continue year on year.
Definitely. We were talking the other day about the kind of National Day of recognition for care workers. It's the National Care Workers Day.
Yeah, Professional Care Workers Day on the 4th of September. So it was running for the last couple of years, and yeah, this year I'm hoping and expecting it to be huge.
Well, I think given everything that's been going on, you'd like to think that we can kind of continue this into a kind of, hopefully maybe that will be like a big crescendo at that point for the kind of the level of recognition. Obviously that's well timed as well, relevant to the care sector fundraising ball, with this obviously going to be lots of positive media about that as well. So yeah, long may it continue, of course. Karolina, what's your view on what needs to happen within the charity? Obviously, you've been in post for a whopping month now. What's next?
What's next? I think it's growing awareness of the charity outside of the sector, so the wider public really gets behind it and wants to support it as much as they're rallying behind the NHS. So that's, you know, main thing really, and, you know, making sure that we raise as much money as possible to support as many care workers as possible, and giving them the voice to improve things. Like, you know, both Ben and I mentioned the speech of the when was it, Thursday or Wednesday, was great, but it has to turn into actions. It has to turn into better pay, better funding, better working conditions and training. So that's something that, you know, we as a charity want to get behind, because it is not ideal that so many care workers are in desperate financial need. So trying to help that way as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Ben, tell me from the chairman's position, tell me a little bit about your view on kind of what happens from here.
Well, I think over this sort of short to mid-term it's all about the coronavirus funding that we're raising, making sure that we're meeting the demand. So there's a hot focus on that for the short to mid-term. Then equally, as the demand and the expectation for the charity is increasing, naturally we need to grow the infrastructure to make sure that we can not only satisfy the fundraising, but equally make sure we can administer grants and provide that advocating role for care workers as well. So there's a big role around fundraising, there's a big role around infrastructure, and then equally making sure that we stay relevant looking into sort of the long term. But right now, I think for everybody out there, long-term strategic planning is kind of out the window, and like many organisations, we're living short to mid-term, making sure that we can make ends meet ourselves, whilst also making sure that we can get as many people out, as much money out to care workers as possible.
I think that's really important as well. It's an interesting one, isn't it? I think the incredible work that care workers do on a day-by-day basis that really is quite extraordinary. I feel like it's been kind of put in the limelight now, and it's almost as if there's almost like a public perception of the fact that, oh wow, this is amazing, they're doing all this incredible stuff now, whereas I think there's almost like a bit of a almost like a gap in people's understanding. It's like, well, yeah, obviously they're doing fantastic stuff now, but that happens 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It's not like this is it's not like they've kind of ramped up being caring. That's kind of the job. And I guess, Karolina, you can of course kind of attest to that, having obviously doing what you do. Give us a breakdown, Karolina, on the type of stuff that you've been involved in, the type of things that you see care workers doing, on just the amazing work that they do on a day-by-day basis.
I think the main thing about care workers is that they always put the person that they support before themselves. You know, if you've had a really horrible day at home, you go into work and you put a smile on your face before you walk in to make sure that you're positive, and you give people what they need. You do lots of extra training and educating yourself how to support people best in their clinical needs. There is a whole array of activities that people don't realize that care workers do around catheter, medication administration. That's an agreement.
It's jealous. He wants to get on the podcast. That's what it is.
Absolutely.
Yes, so clinical duties, catheters, medication administration, stomach bags, etc., which people I don't think realize that care workers do. And then there is a whole emotional and well-being support that having a care worker there that give you all of their time and attention and try their best to support you in different ways, using a variety of skills that it takes a lot of time and knowledge to gain. Mm-hmm. That's an amazing thing that care workers do every day. And like you said, they haven't just started doing it now. And it is about time the wider society started to understand and appreciate that this kind of work goes on, but it is there every day. And even more so right now because of obvious, staffing pressures. Lots of care workers are taking on extra shifts, extra visits, etc., to make sure that nobody is left behind.
I think that's one of the things that I'm really, really conscious of. So you've got these incredible human beings that will literally go above and beyond to be able to go and support other people. And in some instances, it is to their own detriment, because they do put other people in front of them. They're so caring. They've got so much humility. They've got so much commitment and passion for what they do. The thing that I'm almost just as much as the let's say the human cost and the kind of economical cost, because you can't let the world kind of ground to a halt and have no implications of that. There's also a big mental health cost of all of this as well. And I think that on some level that accounts for everyone, because we're humans, and I don't think we're really designed to be cooped up at home and not communicating with people the way that we would do usually. But of course, for care workers and other key workers to be out there on the front line and working super hard normally, but then working double super hard because of everything that's going on. I can imagine that puts pressure on each individual, and that will have implications in their work life, in their personal life, with their mental health, all of that type of stuff as well. Which, if you add that then to some type of financial issue, that's not going to come without its challenges. So, Karolina, can you give me some kind of feeling for some of the people that you've been speaking to around kind of what the general feeling is from care workers in exactly what they're experiencing on a day-by-day basis?
So you may have heard earlier today on BBC that Rainer was talking about over possibly around 4,000 people dying from COVID in care homes. So that really shows the kind of pressure on care workers. And then speaking to care workers themselves or reading on online forums, what I've seen is people grieving, and grief is a part of the job, I suppose, that it's not always addressed as well as it should be. But right now, this grief is hitting people harder because those deaths weren't necessarily expected. Things happen quickly, and in circumstances where care workers don't necessarily feel prepared to be dealing with. And, there are people that they've been working for many years, and they're witnessing them dying from this terrible virus. So there is this very strong feeling of grief. What I've seen as well is people are just so brave, you know, that speaking to different care workers is like, no, I'm going to go. And even some of them with pre-existing health conditions that should really be shielding, but speaking to their managers and making adjustments around their work so they can still go in and help, but maybe not in the same way as their role was before. We're just really trying to do their bit. So care workers are sharing stories around losing people, but they're also very good at sharing stories about people that survived the virus, and those are great moments. And you know, we've had applications from different people for grants and struggles around, you know, one particular care worker, a single mother with 6 children. Wow. That's trying to do her best, but 2 weeks on no pay or just statutory sick pay is just not gonna feed her children. We've had care workers, there was one gentleman that, last week that sent us a story talking about how everything's changed, how in the home they're now really feeling the pressure, and there's like a dark cloud over them because they understand how serious the situation is, but that they all still make time to have a chat about other things and just keep themselves well, as positive as it can be right now. And again, people going out of their way and sacrificing a lot of their personal lives to support each other and to support people they work with. And then we have the stories where groups of care workers are moving into care homes so they don't have to travel, and they're leaving their families behind for 2 weeks, a lot of them with young children, but they just want to make sure that they're protecting people as much as possible. So there are a lot of amazing stories out there. There are heartbreaking stories about loss and grief, but in the true care worker spirit, care workers are really coming together and doing their best. I am worried about the mental health impact, you know, on going forward, and more support needs to be in place for that. But yes, I suppose issues around the sector for many years have made care workers very resilient. And this is what they're showing right now. They're showing how brave they are, and they're showing how resilient they are, and that people they work with are always at the forefront of their minds.
It's been wonderful to be able to celebrate carers on a week by week basis with the Clap for Carers. I just think it's and obviously all of the other initiatives and things that are going on at the moment with Sparkle for Carers and things as well. But it's nice to be able to partake in something, even in a small way, to be able to raise the profile of the social care world. Obviously, hopefully try and raise some funds as well. But just to get it into the public psyche that these are incredible people. They're a lot of the time doing superhuman, extraordinary things on a day-by-day basis, looking after let's face it, there are some of the most vulnerable people in society. So getting them on the map, getting them the appreciation and respect that they deserve is obviously really, really important. So yeah, it's, again, I think you said earlier, Karolina, that it's a shame the fact that it's been a crisis that's had to kind of bring all of this to bear, and for people to start to appreciate. But yeah, hopefully this is the kind of the beginning of a journey where there is more appreciation, there's more respect for these incredible people.
Yeah.
Ben, what type of things have you been seeing in your kind of day-to-day world around the incredible things that care workers have been up to recently?
Well, I just echo what Karolina's saying, really. The care workers going to work in obviously very challenging conditions. I think it's amazing to see how many people are moving into care homes to help protect their residents and equally their own families. Yeah, so tremendous efforts across the board, and obviously it's very humbling to see and amazing to be part of.
What can so this podcast obviously goes predominantly out to the care world. So I feel like we're kind of pushing on an open door in that respect within the sector. But obviously this goes up onto LinkedIn and it goes up onto social media. So there may be some kind of members out the public out there that may be interested. how can we help members of the public to get better understanding of what goes on in the care sector and specifically of the care workers charity, and how can we help them connect to the great work that the sector does, do you think?
I think at the moment there's a lot of awareness raising going on around what all people working in health and social care do. I think there's a greater recognition of the value that they bring to society, which is wonderful, whether that's nurses in the NHS or care workers in care homes. I think the reality is that unfortunately there's a societal mismatch between where we attribute value. So I value care workers, for instance, more than bankers, but where value is actually delivered. Obviously, bankers earn a lot more money. So I think there's a value distortion there, which addressing. Ultimately, that comes down to funding issues within the sector. So you can't just pay all care workers even reasonable wages because the funding isn't there. So there's got to be a rebalancing around if we really value these individuals, are we prepared to pay for that value? And I think that's a true test of societal value. But ultimately, I believe there is a much greater awareness, and then specifically around the care workers charity. Obviously, just get in touch or go on the website. There's a huge amount of information about what we do. We're here to help. Importantly, so whether that's if you're being affected by coronavirus or in hard times, or know of anyone in hard times, obviously we're there to support you. But equally, fundraise for us or get involved, provide your support, because we're looking for great people to come in to support the charity, bring their skills, bring their expertise, and equally bring their cash. We're looking to raise a lot of money over a short period of time right now. We're targeting £1 million. We've done really well to raise a third of that so far. We've got 2/3 to go, and it's going to take real momentum to reach that other £600,000. So we're moving fast with real intensity, and we want to deliver a lot of money to people in need, but we want to do great things over the long term.
We've talking about how people can understand better. We've had nurses donate to our fundraiser saying that they cannot imagine doing what care workers are doing, or which is very similar to what nurses are doing in many ways, especially right now, and have to worry about not having enough money to pay for food or bills. And there have been quite a few nurses doing that. So I think that's rather striking. We've had lots of individuals do their own little fundraisers, challenges, cycling, walking, running, to try and raise money for the charity. And I think what it's going to take for this to get bigger and for care workers to feel more appreciated is finally reaching this parity of esteem between health and social care, because one cannot exist without the other. And right now, care workers are carrying a huge load on their shoulders to support the NHS and in acute cases. And, they're doing everything possible to prevent more of them happening. So yes, people just need to start thinking about social care with the same regard as they do about the NHS, because the two go together. And it's very important that people clap for everybody.
Absolutely. Here. Couldn't agree with that anymore. So one last question then. So if there's somebody there that has got skills or cash or that wants to be able to help out in some way, shape or form, what does this person need to do to get in touch, to kind of show that they want to get into contact? What's the best way to reach out to you guys?
People can email us on our info account on the website. They can reach out to me personally on social media, and obviously Care Workers Charity social media channels as well. We check all these things very frequently, and we've had lots of amazing shows of support and a lot of people creating free things for the charity to support fundraising and offering their valuable time. So yes, but like Ben said, we are a third way there. We need a lot more funds to raise to support people because the need is huge out there. So we just need more people to rally behind the care workers charity.
Well, if there was ever a call to arms, I think this is a super important one, and I know that I'm going to be doing as much as I can, and I'll be encouraging everyone I know to get involved and to be able to support in whatever way they can, whether that's a small donation, a big donation, support in whichever way that it comes together. But just kind of lastly, to me, thank you both of you so much for doing what you do. It's incredible work. You support people obviously in their hour of need, and these are tremendous people that deserve all the appreciation, respect, and support that they can get. So thank you both to you guys. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast today.
Thanks.
See you, mate.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye.